Grief is the physical, psychological and emotional response that arises when people are adjusting to losses. This film will present a health case scenario that typically arises in our daily practice. We commonly have to tell consumers the bad news about a diagnosis, an intervention or a surgical procedure. We support consumers and families whose perception of the world has completely changed due to disaster. We need to know how to deal with their needs through this period. The aim of the film is to demonstrate and discuss the different skills involved in delivering bad news or simply supporting people and consumers through their grief and loss. The film doesn't demonstrate an advanced level of intervention, but it simply seeks to allow us to explore and engage in the types of skills that we as allied health practitioners will need to use on a daily basis when assisting our consumers. The setting today takes us to the outpatients department and one of the clinics in a large urban hospital. Sue Forrest is the mum of Emma, a newborn, and Sue has been asked to come in and see the audiologist.
I'm Sue. My baby girl Emma is a week old. She has some difficulty with hearing. Today is my second day of hours of testing. Mum's with me here today as my partner left a couple of months ago. And I don't know what I'm going to do. So Sue, we've come to the end of quite a lot of testing today, and Emma slept really well today, so we got some good results, very clear results. Emma does have a moderate hearing loss in both ears, and the results are showing that that's a... Sorry, what does that mean? What do you mean by moderate? Okay, so for example, the level that I'm speaking at the moment is about 60 decibels, and Emma's hearing is just coming in, she's hearing just a bit more than, just a little bit less. So is it like a volume thing? It's like a volume thing. Yeah, but yeah, so for the very soft sounds, she will be not able to hear all the very soft sounds. Okay, so it means that she can actually hear. It's just that... That's right. Okay. So she'll be able to hear speech sounds, for example. She'll just need to have these made a little bit louder for her by wearing hearing aids. So is that like something that she would get straight away, then, the hearing aids? Or like, do they make hearing aids for babies? Or babies can wear hearing aids, and we're going to refer her to the appropriate services so that she can be fitted as soon as possible. So will you be able to see them and stuff? Like, will you see the hearing aids? Yeah, but tell me how you're feeling about that, Sue. I just feel, I don't know, it's stupid, I don't know. I just don't want anything to be wrong with her, you know? I don't want her to have things in her ears, and I don't want people to look at her like she's different, and...
You do empathy very well.
I actually saw you mirroring a lot of the facial expressions. And when you talked about the emotional reaction to hearing distressing news, your hand went to your heart, and you was just so engaged with her pain. Although she wasn't looking at you, you were very physically conveying to her that you were very conscious of how she was feeling, which was really, I really noticed that, but particularly your facial expressions, we saw a lot of mirroring.
The delivery was very authentic, very real and very gentle, which worked really well for Sue. And I got a sense there was a really nice tight space created around you while you were delivering the news, and then she was reacting, and that was created by the way you positioned your body and your hands and the way you moved in to touch when she was distressed.
I did feel like I got the information, that I understood, what was going on, but it was really interesting that it took me in a direction that I hadn't even thought about before with the hearing aids, and that she was going to look different. And
that would be a very important point for a lot of people, is that their child looks different.
Oh, yeah. I felt really guilty.
So that's the blame.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, isn't it? We don't often think that when we're delivering the bad news that in fact there's all these other things going on in people's mind. It is about, this is the loss of expectation of the perfect child. My child will look different. What will that mean? How will that, feel?
So we'll just start from where we talked about that having things in her ears and...
Yes, exactly. Okay, so and looking different and how that would feel.
I feel so bad for her because she's going to have these things, and now I feel like it's my fault. And I know it's not, but I feel so sad for her, I feel... that she's going to be different, and how will that be for her? And I don't know, maybe I could have done something. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
So for me, I didn't know what to say, but I knew that I could listen empathetically and just let her
She was
talk.
doing really well with that.
But I didn't know what to say. So
Sometimes not saying anything is quite okay, but I could start to see you were
becoming uncomfortable.
getting a little bit uncomfortable, and I could see your hand was grasping a bit, and that what made me stop it.
And, actually I felt that at the end too, like it was good, the listening, and then I kind of felt that you wanted to say something but you didn't know what to say, and that's why I kind of went, oh, don't worry.
Yeah, no, I could feel your pain almost, I could see you wanted to say something or do something, but you didn't know what. And I can tell you right now, it's not an easy situation. And sometimes just saying it, I really don't know what to say right now.
Oh, do you mean to the patient?
Because that's a big
It's
thing
huge.
to actually say, I don't know what to say. Like you've said it to us, but not necessarily.
So I can say, look, I knew I could listen empathetically, but I didn't know what to say that would help her.
There isn't, sometimes there's nothing that really can make anything better. Nothing you can say will make it better.
Or even to acknowledge that I was hearing what she was saying in some, and not a way that was going to be detrimental or hurtful. Or
It's more about just being with
In the
her,
moment.
because they do. Like Sue was saying, or Jess was saying, she was starting to feel the emotion. She could feel you getting tense. What would be a difficult thing for you normally?
to actually be delving too much more further into, say for example, Sue's family situation. I would have that knowledge that this was her situation, but to actually sort of explore that in a lot more depth.
So I'm going to attempt that with Sue. She may not give permission for me to go to that painful area, but if she does, we can work with whatever comes up. Yeah.
Sounds great.
You feel really alone at the moment.
Well, that I told my partner Paul. And this will just add to it. He'll be, it makes me so angry to think that he'll say something about this and it's not her fault, and it's not.
Yeah. Yep.
It'll just be another reason why.
Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Well, so it's so important to acknowledge that you're currently going through enormous loss about your relationship with Paul. And the things that we're talking about today, the changes that this diagnosis will mean for Emma, there's lots of loss involved in that too. Some dreams and hopes that you had will be changed, they'll be different. Yeah. And you've got to be really gentle to yourself and kind to yourself at the moment, because losses upon losses are enormous for anyone to work through.
I liked the way that you were talking about the loss there and acknowledging that she's going through not only this grief and loss, but also has had other griefs and loss, and it won't necessarily get better straight away. Because that's a really important thing, is that it's not something that she'll just get over. So that was really nice, and the use of silence and just being there too. You had a really nice pace to your conversation. You weren't too fast, you weren't too slow, you just sat there with her.
Was there any sense of intrusiveness for you? Because I guess it's probably controversial for all allied health or practitioners to take it in that direction a little bit.
No, I didn't feel that, because I felt like, we'd built up enough of a rapport to allow me to do that, and in lots of ways it felt really nice to be able to cry.
I firmly believe that sitting with somebody, just reaffirming that it is something that's really difficult for them to feel, that it won't be something that's going to, just click your fingers, it'll be okay, that she's mentioned that she's had previous losses, you know it from the file probably, that, it's about that, and just being there and supporting. I think anyone should, can do that, and if they can't, then certainly they need to think about whether or not they need somebody else in there with them.
So if I can start where you finished, which was really just having acknowledged the multiple losses in Sue's life. And I can see you shaking your head.
Paul won't be here.
Okay. Well, if we can focus on Emma, step 1, and you, step 2, and from there we can decide who we do and don't bring in. And I'm wondering, in bringing in somebody else as a step 3, that might be your mum who's here with Emma today. Would you like her to come in today and, we'll discuss where we go from here as a support person? Because I'm really aware that often when people receive news like this and they have so many things going on, and let's not us forget, you've just given birth very recently, you're probably feeling very tired, very overwhelmed and very upset, that maybe it might help to have somebody sit with you who can also be here as a support, but may be able to attend and take some notes, even if you'd like your mum to. You can see Emma. How would that be? Would that be helpful to have her as a support whilst I talk through where we go from here?
Yeah, I guess so.
Is there something else you need before we go further? I'm offering for Mum to come in as a support because the next steps are really important. And I know you were really concerned earlier about how soon Emma would be fitted with her hearing aids. And I think, just having that support, and I think even just holding sweet little Em, might be helpful as well at this stage. How does that sound? Yeah. Okay. We actually got eye contact.
Yeah.
And that was a very powerful turning point for me. When you actually looked at me and there was a little bit of light and hope in your face, and okay, yeah, it is just day 1, and yeah, that would be good if Mum's in here, and you really acknowledge that you hadn't heard a lot of what we've said, and I just tried to normalise that by saying, yeah, look, you've had a lot going on, pregnancy, external events. I didn't want to use Paul's name again because I knew that was going to put people into
Yes, and that's when I thought you were going to lose it for a minute when you mentioned Paul, and she went, I haven't got a partner. It was like,
he won't be a part of it. Yeah. And I didn't want to make any assumptions about his role in all of this as well.
You did a nice little redirect in some ways of, you redirected her to Emma, being outside.
That's step 1.
Yeah, that's step 1. And then,
step 3.
and then what was the final thing that you mentioned? Oh, that's right. You completely redirected and said, what's your mum's name? So then she was like, oh, that's out of me now. I'm into, yes, my mother's name is.
And holding Emma for that might actually be very comforting as well, that we've sort of talked around her, and I tried to bring it back to her previous conversations from Gillian, that Emma is actually the patient, and that they were out there, and let's really ground and be very present with what's going on today, and just acknowledging how difficult it is to hear that kind of news, and that you have the strength to sit and listen, respond, share what's been going on, and also just contextualizing the space that all of that was happening. You'd also had a baby, physically very fatigued.
Like the
Yeah.
arm on the couch too. We had this little relationship of location going on. It was that sort of mothering almost position.
Yes, because I was
Yeah.
conscious. I was sort of
Yes.
you know, and that was, I used touch a lot, I guess, to really ground people, because you can't, like when you try to demand eye contact, that can be very threatening, and you were not ready. So it was all about just grounding you that there was at least one person here present attending to what you're going through, and then just backing off and giving you the space, but still being quite present physically.
Having said that, though, a lot of people won't be comfortable with touch, so we don't expect that. You know, that doesn't normally happen with a lot of people unless
No.
they're quite used to dealing with situations like this.
And if I was a man, you know, that could have been highly inappropriate
Oh
as
yes,
well.
yes.
Even if
And
there are
culture
sense.
is another issue again.
Yeah.
And the key things that we've seen here today, and I was talking to, you know, ad nauseum, I suppose, about, you know, space. So, and we've just talked about that. It's about being close towards each other, angled towards each other, not distant. The body language is attenuated towards the other person. You know, it's not sort of disengaged. Somebody's not standing up and delivering the news so that there's a power. So it's an automatic acceptance that, you know, there's a power relationship if you're standing over somebody, that it becomes more about an engagement together. Take weigh tables, get rid of things that are between the two of you are really important. Gestures, I was just thinking of gestures too. If you're nervous, don't stick your hands in your pockets. It looks defensive. Or don't do this all the time, because that looks defensive as well. Sometimes just having your hands in your lap, or we naturally tend to gesture, I think, some of us. But don't point, which sometimes does happen too. The eye contact. So it's about appropriate eye contact, not getting too close when people feel discomforted by it, but having a measured sense of engagement with eye contact. That language.
I think in terms of, you know, the tone of voice, it's really important. Speaking not too loudly and not too quickly, and often I do a lot of matching as well. If people start talking loudly, I might suddenly start talking more softly rather than going loudly. And I think speaking very clearly, you know, not chewing on a pen or something in my mouth or gum in my mouth, is really important. And also just, you know, I don't want to go too fast or too slow, but at the same time I don't want to seem too mechanical in the way that I'm doing it either. So I was very conscious to not use a lot of clinical terminology as well. A lot of people don't even know what an audiologist does, let alone, you know, what decibels mean. And
Because that reminds me of a point too, is that you'd already had a lot of engagement with mum, so there was no need for you to explain your role. But normally, of course, when you go into a room, you actually introduce yourself, make very clear what your role is and what your role within the team is. And that's one of the first principles of, you know, the old first aid that we need to know. But it's very important, and it's amazing how many people don't do it.
I was going to reinforce some of the skills we've seen today and that are really important in conversations where grief and loss features are things like summarising, because when the client has lots of emotions and waves of questions and lots of strong reactions, summarising what's being discussed can help contain and refocus the conversation. Paraphrasing if there's been really a lot of information shared. And then if you're really not sure what a client's meaning, choosing a word and just repeating it back to them to allow leverage for them to explore in more detail. There's some great words that Sue used today, like I'm lonely or I'm angry, or what does this mean? Where if we just repeated that back, we would get a fuller understanding of where Sue was coming from. So those micro skills, as well as attending completely to the client, will really help to succeed at a good session where grief and loss features.
And sometimes it's not about, if you've never thought around these things before, it's not saying, oh, I need to do all of these all at once and I must do them. Even focusing on one thing and saying, I'll practice that for a while to see
That's
how
right.
that makes the reaction different, and then you might be able to gradually add a little bit of a skill or something else as well, so that in the end you've got a set of skills that you know.
I think too, if you're looking to use an evidence base to improve your practice skills and clinical skills with patients, it's really nice, as they're the experts in the experience they're having, to ask them after the passage of time, what worked well for you in that? What would you recommend I do with other parents who were in your shoes that day? Because they will be incredible guides to help improve your skill set from the client's voice.
That's an excellent point. And checking in. Yeah, as you say, checking in how they're going all the time. Is there anything else that I can do for you? Is there anything else that, look, I haven't covered, or, that anything that I can do for you to make you more comfortable with what's happening around you. Good.